Showing up online does not have to lead to burnout. I promise. It does not. Especially if you're a business owner or a content creator that feels like I have to keep showing up and I have to keep showing up as my whole self. How do I do that without feeling like I'm oversharing or I've got a vulnerability hangover now? Or maybe this is information that these people shouldn't be knowing, but how do I know that? How do I determine what everyone should know or shouldn't know based on the boundaries that I have put in? Well, today's guest talks about that and more. Please join me in welcoming Cayla to the podcast. We are going to be talking through how to really get in touch with your intuition and figure out what it is that you should be sharing or shouldn't be sharing, where to connect with people that you can, as a well-rounded whole human, share the different aspects of yourself without feeling like you're oversharing in one space or the other. All right, please join me in welcoming Cayla to the podcast. Hello, Cayla. I am so excited to have you on the podcast today. If you could start by telling everyone who you are and what you do.
I'm super excited to be here. My name is Cayla. I'm a personal brand and energy coach, and I love supporting coaches, creatives, entrepreneurs to feel confident online, showing up and standing out by standing in who they are. And I do that with a combination. I have 15 years of design and art direction experience in New York City. And I have 4 years of life and energy coaching training. So I combine those two facets to help kind of your insides match your outside. Because yes, there's the visual branding piece of what I do, but I feel like a larger portion of what I do is supporting people with that confidence piece, because it can be really challenging. And when we have this like idea on our heart of like, I want to support people, I have this idea, and then we are kind of like thrust into being a spokesperson for that idea, it can be a little challenging. And so supporting people with the mindset side of that with energy coaching is something I really, really love. So they can, show up authentically online without having to, be someone they're not.
When you say energy coaching, what does that exactly mean for people who are like, I like energy, I also don't like other energies, but like, what does that mean for me?
Great question. And there's also like a wide spectrum of energy healing modalities out there. The lineage that I studied in is with a woman named Sora Shelley. She has a program called Devoted Energy Coaching School, and it is a combination of mindset support, like mindset work and life coaching, as well as some somatic practices as well. So we go into a meditative state, tuning in and kind of tapping into the feeling and emotion that is tied to kind of the thought that we're exploring and seeing what comes through. And it's really profound, the information that we have within ourselves that we can't always access when we're kind of just thinking or trying to figure it out. So it's, as an overthinker myself, energy coaching has been profoundly supportive, just as a different way of kind of navigating frustrations or challenges or like mindset blocks, because someone who's tried, you can only overthink so much. So energy coaching really kind of provides you with like a different avenue of tapping in and tuning into your intuition, essentially.
I've worked with an energy coach before, and she took a different approach in, like you said, there's like such a spectrum, right, to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to try not to butcher this, but the idea is that in our relationships, the one that I was working with specifically was how I show up energetically in those relationships. So if I'm at a 6 and the other person's coming at me with a 3, then like, what does that look like? And what would it look like if I match their energy, or if I decided, hey, I'm going to be a 7 instead, and just kind of exploring it from there's no right energy, there's no wrong energy. It's about just kind of testing it and feeling it out and being like, okay, this was the result with this, or this is why I showed up this way, kind of exploring it in that way. And I really, really enjoyed that because it kind of gave me more of an outside looking in look at how I energetically show up to these relationships. And so I imagine in a similar sense, the work that you do is about like stepping outside of like the current storm feelings, etc.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
being able to kind of see bigger picture without letting our kind of current feelings, emotions, etc. guide us on what that next step is for us. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's yes, and I would say it's definitely an inside out perspective. So it's like it's tuning in to kind of see like what is actually underneath the like, oh my God, I'm just like I don't want to show up on Instagram because I don't want to be annoying. And it's kind of like, okay. And what I also love about energy coaching is that it's not therapy. So it's not we're not digging into be like, well, this one time I was fine.
Yeah.
Like it's just tuning in to kind of like the emotional sensation, the feeling and just sitting with our feelings essentially and seeing what we need and how to kind of support the emotions that sometimes get stuck in our bodies. And then from that kind of finding that internal clarity, we have more external clarity to share it out. So again, rather than like getting stuck in our headspace with all of the shoulds of how we should be showing up, what we should be doing, and like the trends we should be following, coming from a much more clear and grounded and embodied space that we can then put outward.
Yeah. I'm seeing a lot lately, and a lot of these are reaction videos. So I'm not seeing these people's actual content, but it's people getting on the internet and being like, this crazy thing happened in my life. My mom slept with my husband, or like, this crazy thing is happening in my class, and like putting all of their business on blast.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that's not authenticity, or at least that's not the authenticity that we as business owners, or even just as
Yeah.
more self aware people,
Yeah.
looking to
Yeah.
get. So, what would you consider as like authentically showing up online?
Yeah. So I would say that sounds more like kind of drama dumping, which like we all need to process and therapy is a great space. Therapy is a really great outlet to process those kind of experiences. Some people choose to process online. It doesn't feel super supportive for me. To each his own. But yeah, that's not what I would define as authenticity online for me. Again, it's that clarity within myself. And this is also something that I explore in my group program, Brand Magic, is like exploring your brand boundaries. And that is exactly that of like, what am I going to show up? Like, what am I going to share online? And what am I going to keep for myself?
Mm.
And a lot of the people I work with are like coaches, and it's like, you'll be kind of navigating potentially a challenge. And there's a phrase that I really appreciate. It's like share from the scar, not from the wound. It's like, again, there are times where it's like, oh my God, this wild thing is happening. I have to share this out. And I understand that desire and impulse. And for me, I know that it doesn't feel supportive when I just like put it out on the internet like that, because then it's like now I have a massive vulnerability hangover and I'm not really having a conversation to actually process. Like I just like put things out there and now I'm feeling really vulnerable and like it's just not the best. So making sure to kind of like take time to process, like, and find kind of the kernel of like, what am I experiencing here? I even desire sharing about this, then what do I want to share and what don't I want to share? And this was all this, I went through this process. So over the summer, last time we spoke, we was like in April and this wasn't even on the docket. But so my now husband and I decided to get married and I thank you had this like kind of interesting experience of like, well, how much do I want to share of this? Because it's like, it's a very personal thing. And like, while I like documented the journey of like going to a sample sale and getting my dress, I wanted to kind of like hold on to it for myself for like a little bit, just so I could kind of have it for my own self, I guess, a little bit. And then kind of, yeah, exploring like how much I want to share, when I want to share, like how to go about that. And it was really interesting because I think when we kind of think about like showing up online as a personal brand, as a business, as like the face of our business, I think we can kind of get into the idea of we have to share everything about our lives. And it's like, we don't owe anyone anything on the internet. And that's so like that is part of like I'm a huge proponent of like if you don't want to share your kids, if you don't want to share like the things that are special to you, like absolutely keep those for yourself. And I'm a proponent of sharing all of ourselves online. It's like we don't have to share everything. We get to pick and kind of we get to choose what we feel comfortable sharing and what we get to keep for ourselves as humans. And so I think it's a practice of also finding that discernment of what do I feel comfortable sharing? What don't I feel comfortable sharing? Like, who do I want to speak to? And like, that's another thing is like kind of exploring, like, are there people whose voices you can hear and like their judgment? Like, are there old colleagues that maybe you can like block for just a little bit? Because like just even knowing that like, oh my God, that person from seventh grade is going to see that I shared that I have this new business and they're going to think I'm so stupid. It's like, maybe I don't need to know about it. Like,
Right.
obviously we want to get to a place where we're like, I'm perfect and I don't care what anyone thinks, but we're humans. We're not going to just immediately feel that way. My perspective is very much human centered and unique to the individual. It's like whatever authentically showing up means to you, then that's the path you get to take. And that's going to look different for me and it's going to look different for you. That's going to look different for other people because we all have different kind of thresholds of what feels comfortable for us to share and show up. And also same with like, it's going to be different for people who are not as comfortable on camera or who really love writing or who want to share their voice. And so I'm also a huge proponent of embracing your content creation zone of genius, where it's like that thing that you're really good at and that you love doing. And for me, video, I like talking to cameras and I've done it for a really long time. And that feels good. That feels fun. It feels playful because the more we enjoy showing up, one, the easier it's going to be. And also then it kind of like opens that door to feeling like ourselves, like our authentic selves, rather than having to kind of perform and be someone we're not.
I could not agree more. And I feel like there's like so many different ways that we could go here with this. But you mentioned you get to put those boundaries up. And I think that that is such an important part of being a content creator, a business owner, is that we say, this content that I'm creating is not really for me. That's not to say that you can't have other avenues to explore your own creativity or your own exciting like side stuff, right? Like I do that with romance novels and having a bookstagram, and like that's how I get that outlet out. Like I like this stuff. This is exciting, cool. But my podcast people that are here for the business side of my stuff, they're not going to care, or they might even be offended by some of the things that I post on that account. And it's like, what is this person here for? That is what I'm going to share. And it has to follow under those content buckets. And we talk about that with like the podcast and podcasting specifically a lot of like, and I've used this example before, but if anybody's new, if you're at the splash pad with your kids and there's that big bucket, or if you've been to a, water park, that big bucket that just kind of dumps on everybody, that's like all your ideas and all your multifaceted awesomeness. But then you've got the little funnels and the little, buckets that catch underneath that. And that is the stuff that you're like, okay, does this fall into one of these content buckets? Or is this something that I maybe share on my personal Facebook page, or I share with my friends on Voxer, or that I share with my spouse? Like, where does this excitement or this content fall? And I think that it's so important as business owners and as content creators that we have a variety of spaces to share our multifacetedness, because that prevents us from cutting down those boundaries of like, this is what I don't share here. And then we get on the internet and we brain dump things that maybe shouldn't be there and can hinder us as business owners.
Yeah. I also feel like for me, it feels like a hierarchy a little bit. So it's like, what is like kind of like the main thing that I talk about? And a lot of what I talk about is like authenticity showing up online. And then it's like, what are kind of like other supporting characters in that realm, because like for me, I am a multifaceted. I really like doing a lot of things. Like I'm also an Aquarius, which I'm learning more and more about. I feel like I'm a very stereotypical Aquarius, but it's like I don't want to be boxed in, and so it's like niching. I've got some strong feelings about niching, and I feel like what I'm going to say is like we don't have to share any and everything. Like like DMs exist for a reason, and it's a fine balance of kind of finding the personal part of personal branding while also clarity of sharing what you do and how you can support people, which like also could vary. If you're a content creator, then you might have a little bit more leeway. If you're like a lifestyle personal brand, then like that may be a little bit, the boundaries may be a little bit broader, but it's like if you're using social media for your business, then like you got to talk about your business, and it's will behoove you to talk about other kind of like supporting areas of your business, and then kind of sprinkling in the personal branding rather than just kind of like throwing everything at the wall. Which I will say, when you're just starting out, and what I encourage my clients to do is like throw everything at the wall. Just get into the practice of posting, of sharing yourself, of talking to a camera. Because I know for me, something that kept me stuck and like not posting was this idea of like, what is my niche? Who am I talking to? What am I saying? What are the exact, like this very like perfection based thinking that I need to figure everything out before I can even show up. And I think that does more harm than good, because once you have that kind of practice of like showing up, then you can refine it. Whereas like if you're terrified of being on camera and you want to make sure you're saying everything exactly right in accordance with like expertise, as well as like, yeah, feeling that imposter syndrome, as well as like trying to make sure to like get instant sales, you're just putting too much pressure on yourself rather than kind of just incrementally building up that confidence in yourself to show up and then continue to show up and then continue to kind of refine and be like, okay, yeah. Also for me, showing up, like the more we say what we do, the more that we kind of can find other ways of explaining what we do and refine that as well. So it's like we're not just kind of thinking in a vacuum and brainstorming in a vacuum. We're actually kind of saying the words out loud. And also we have the opportunity to get feedback from people, for people to be like, oh, that sounds so cool. Or people to be like, what? I have no idea what that is.
Right. And then you can then expound on that. Yeah, I definitely agree. And I've been in the online space for 9 years now. And I have a lot of opinions about, what people who start off should do or shouldn't do, because I've been in the mom groups where they're like, do this thing. And I've been in the new business owner groups. Everyone should have an email list. And I've been in all of those spaces and heard all the noise. And I've built a business that worked for me, that wasn't based off of online sales, that was based off of this connection that I made with a person that I then was able to take and make money from. And then, okay, I know this other person who knows someone and refers them. And so, yes, it's more of a referral based business, but like that's how you can make money quickly and efficiently. And then take the skills and the things that you're like, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. I wouldn't know that I didn't like podcast pitching if I didn't try it. Now, if I made that my whole business, then I'd be a mess. Whereas like I was able to test that out first before being like, I am the podcast pitching person, to like test it out with people, to say, hey, I'm thinking about offering this. Would you like to do it at a discount with me? And let's see what we can do. And then realizing, nope, I actually hate this. I can't control any of the results. No, thank you. I'm done. Cool. I'm never going to talk about that as a service that I offer. And I never did, and I never have to. Right. So like, I think that there's this disillusionment, and I don't even know if that's the right word, but there's this idea that a lot of people have when they get into the online space, that one, they have to have all the answers and they're never allowed to change who they are or what they offer. and that they have to make a decision now that's going to impact the next 5, 10, 15 years of their life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, we are humans. We evolve. I am not the person I was 2 years ago at all.
Yeah.
I've changed my mind about podcasting since I've been podcasting, and I've been podcasting since 2018. Then I had this
Mm-hmm.
idea, if you start a podcast, you should be able to keep going with it. But before we got on, we were literally talking about a limited series and what that might look like and how you could use it. And if you would have asked me
Yeah.
before, I'd be like, nope, you should just stick with it for the rest of your life. And that should be your only option. Like, very rigid in that opinion. But
Mm-hmm.
then as I explored, oh, wait, actually, you know what? I was wrong. Say that. And that's
Yeah.
okay. I'm a person, I'm human. And I think that endears us to our audience in an authentic way. Realize, oh, wait, I can shift too, and I can be a multifaceted person too.
Absolutely. I think there's so much. There's so much about like, and as you're talking about that, the propensity we have to define who we are, what we're doing for the rest of our lives. Hi, that sounds like college when they're like, oh, you're 18. Decide the one thing that you're going to do for the next 40 years. Good luck.
Yep.
And so it's like, obviously, we're humans. We're just doing the best we can. We're going to take the systems we know and we're going to replicate it as much as perhaps they aren't supportive. But it's like that, yeah, the only way we can learn what is for us and what isn't for us is through trying, is through actually feeling kind of like going after that like little nudge of like, I think I'm gonna do this thing, and not letting our ego talk us out of it, and not let our ego be like, oh, that's such a stupid idea. I can't believe you would ever think that, and be like, okay, you're right, never again.
Yeah.
And that's a really courageous thing to do, because we're just so conditioned since birth to think, one, trust others. We're just like, oh, everyone else, for me, I wouldn't speak for everyone. For me, there's a lot of like, oh, well, everyone knows better than me. And like, it's a great space for that, the online business space, because everyone is like, oh, yeah, I have the one solution for you. So you're like, perfect. Thank you. Love to outsource my intuition to you, because it's real dang uncomfortable trusting and potentially making a mistake. And so I think it's really beautiful that you are embracing the fact that we're humans, we shift, we evolve, and modeling that for people who come into contact with you, because it's like, I feel like we have gotten to a space in society where it's like, no, this is who I am forever and ever, and I can never change. And we're lacking that growth mindset. And that's keeping so many of us stuck in spaces that aren't supportive for us. And yeah, it's limiting. It's just very limiting.
And I think that's the way to show up authentically, right? Is like to kind of own your own intuition, as like, I kind of know stuff. Like, I actually know some things. This is pretty cool. And like owning that, and also being like, I also don't know stuff. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think parenthood really has taught me a lot of that. Is my kids ask me questions all the time, and I'm just like, you know what? I don't know. Let's talk to Google and see what it says. And then here's how to look at Google and be like, is this a reputable site to look at or not? Right? Like, teaching moment for everybody.
Yeah, that is a wildly, wildly important lesson for everyone. Just, yeah, being able to not need to be everything for everyone, and being able to kind of stay true to ourselves. Because I feel like, yeah, sometimes when we kind of step away from our authenticity, when we get into these kind of comparison spaces, is when we're like, oh, well, that person's doing it that way, I have to do that too. And it's like, is that really your wheelhouse? Is that really like your passion? Is that really where you want to be going? And I think that's also a constant practice, because while Instagram and social media is amazing at connecting us with more people than ever, that's also really hard, because we are able to compare ourselves with more people than ever before. So it's like we are constantly like, oh, maybe that grass is greener, maybe that grass is greener, and kind of like outsourcing our intuition, rather than what you're saying of like tuning in and being like, I do know things and I do have value to share because otherwise, like, we wouldn't have like that little tap on our shoulder to be like, hey, I think you should do this thing if we were just full of it. You know, like, there's a reason.
Yes.
I also feel like we're in this age of iteration where people want to go on the journey with you. Like, they want to see your work. Like, they want to see and like be alongside with you on the journey rather than just those perfectly polished, like, I am at the end and I've made $10,000,000 and I'm the best. Cause it's like, okay, I don't know yet. Like, okay, you're not a label. Like, I want to see the real people who are showing up in their lives so I don't feel like a failure. And so I think that is also like about like just embracing our fullness and embracing kind of our own cringe.
So if someone is like, all right, that sounds lovely. Also, how in the world do I take maybe the next step to listen to my intuition?
I mean, I think I love energy coaching. I'm a proponent of energy coaching, and it's just a different conversations I've had with some of my clients are like it's more helpful than meditation because it's not just like you're being told to not think thoughts. It's like you're going on an internal journey with yourself, but it would definitely, yeah, some guided energy coaching meditations, which I'm now thinking about if I have any on my website, and I don't know if I do. So note to self to create some of those. Well, it can be as simple as that, like, what do I want for lunch? And sometimes it's also no's. It's like sometimes like, do you want pizza? Oh no. And it's like, ooh, no. And it's noticing that feeling of like, oh, because a lot of times it's like, oh, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. But it's like if someone says, well, do you want something that is really not appetizing to you? You're gonna have a reaction. You're gonna be like, oh, that that's your intuition. That's more kind of like an external presentation of your intuition. Also beginning to just take 5 minutes to like sit with yourself, listening to guided meditation, journaling, and like allowing kind of space for there to be quiet, I think is a really great way to kind of tap into your intuition. And I'm not going to say it's not challenging because our minds have a lot to say. Yeah, it's a practice. It's a practice that's going to evolve.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. One thing that I do with my kids, and maybe this will help someone, is when they're like, I can't choose, I can't decide. And this happens on a nightly basis when we have our bedtime story
Yeah.
that we listen to, or our bedtime meditation that we listen to on Headspace, or we have this thing that projects to like planets or stars onto the
Yeah.
ceiling, and they each get to pick. One person gets the meditation, the other one gets to pick the projection. But there's too many options, of course. So I don't know. I can't decide what I want to do. And so I'll say, well, here are 3 options that sound really good. Which one sounds like the best option? And they're like, I don't know. I can't decide. So I'll say, okay, cool. Do eeny, meeny, miny, mo. And then if you're excited about the one you land on, then that's the one you wanted to do. But if you're like, oh, I kind of wanted to do this other one, then that's the one you do. And that's okay. Like, you can land on that one and be like, actually, no, this helped me make up my mind, right? So like, trust that.
Yeah, absolutely. More often to the frustration of my husband, that is, he's like, yeah, do you want pizza for dinner? I'm like, no. Do you want sushi? I'm like, no. And then I'm like, okay, I guess I want pasta. Like, it's like, yeah, but sometimes that's kind of like the strongest part of our intuition. Still counts, but it's like, yeah, once we begin kind of flexing that muscle, then you'll be able to kind of get more practice and you'll be able to kind of feel it more frequently as well.
Yeah. And you can always change your mind, right?
Yes.
It's
What
okay.
a huge permission. Absolutely.
Always okay. This has been so good, Cayla. Thank you so much for being on the show. If you could tell everyone where they can find you, hang out with you, get to know you, join your program, etc.
Thank you. I've loved chatting with you. I'm over on Instagram, Cayla.Merrill, Cayla, period, Merrill. And I'm also on YouTube, same handle. Hang out there quite a bit. And I have a group program, Brand Magic. And then I also have some freebies on my website. I have one, Shine Bright Bingo, which is 24 content prompts that have kind of examples of content ideas, with caption ideas, so you can kind of see what feels good. And again, that it's like there's people who will reach out and be like, oh, I'm doing the bingo, but it made me think of this idea. Is that okay? And I'm like, yup, like that's part of it. Like it's meant to be just kind of like the spark for creating content that feels good and aligned and authentic to you. And it's also a bingo game. So it's fun, you know. And I have a website that is caylamerrillcoaching.com. But hang out
Awesome.
with me on Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll make sure we link all of that in the show notes as well for anyone who is driving or doing other things as they are listening. Again, Cayla, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This was absolutely wonderful.